It is my great honor to be here with all of you, talk about EU-China business collaborations. We know we are all of us now experiencing the increasingly challenging time of the pandemic, and unfortunately we have yet to see the end of it. But I would like to say that life is continue, and the business interactions between EU and China also keeps going on. Even within last year, most affected by the pandemic, we still got so many inquiries from Chinese companies, Chinese investors about European markets. And even by now, we are now simultaneously assisting 3 Chinese investors open their business in Poland, build up their factories in Poland. So it just tells us, it shows this means there is still bigger room and many opportunities for both Chinese and European companies to explore, to grab on. So I'm working for CCPIT. I'm working in Poland as a chief representative of CCPIT in Poland and in CE countries. CCPIT has about 12 representatives offices across Europe. So we are ready, we are open to help you dealing with any business with China. Today, the topic is about the EU and China relations, especially for this investment agreement that just have accomplished the negotiation. I think it's a good news. It's good news for everyone sitting here. So the nature of this agreement is to provide access for Chinese and European investors to the respective markets. But based on the information we got by now, I would like to say this means that this agreement would bring more benefits to European investors. Because according to this information released now, we know this China will open more markets and some specific industries for foreign investors. Those that in past were not open for foreign investors or partly open. So I think it's a good challenge and good news for European investors. So I would like to say that this agreement for sure will have far-reaching impact on business behaviors of both Chinese and European companies, and may reshape almost everything we were used to. No, generally, I'm not good at this legal issues. So today it is our great honor to have invited Dr. Han Bing and Dr. Pan Yuanyuan from Chinese State Academy of Social Sciences to share with their experts' views. So now let me pass the floor first to Dr. Han Bing. Please, Han.
Thank you. Thank you, Director Guo. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I'm honored to be invited to participate in today's conference. In the past year, the unprecedented business environment created by the pandemic has greatly dampened the investment confidence of international investors. On December 30, Chinese and European leaders jointly announced the completion of the China-European Comprehensive Agreement on Investment negotiations as scheduled. This undoubtedly brought a real certainty to the current international business environment full of instability and uncertainty. Today, I will talk about CAI from 4 aspects. First, I will give a brief introduction to background on negotiations. Then I will talk about the main content and the impact of China and EU CII. I think from an investor's perspective, it is more interesting to know what investment opportunities CII can offer. So in the third part, I will focus on the rules related to market access in CII. Lastly, I would like to discuss the CII's implementation. Right now, there are 25 bilateral investment agreements concluded between China and 26 of the 27 EU member states. However, none of these agreements include market access provisions and only include investment protection rules. In November 2013, China and the EU formally announced the launch of the CII negotiations during the 16th China and EU Summit. After 7 years and 35 rounds of negotiations, China and the EU have reached the CII on the occasion of the 45th anniversary of the establishment of diplomatic relations between China and the EU. Recently, European Commission published the agreement in principle, but the annexes to the agreement will be published in February. European Commission pointed out that the text is published for information purpose only and may undergo further modifications as a result of the process of legal and technical revision. Therefore, the following analysis is mainly based on the text released right now. The CII includes a preamble and 6 chapters. Some of the key topics of CII are state-owned enterprises, subsidy, transparency, technology transfer, standard setting, administrative enforcement, financial supervision, dispute settlement, and investment and sustainable development. According to the CII's content, I think 3 main points should inform any discussion of the CII. First, the CII will further promote China and EU investment cooperation and foreign direct investment inflows and outflows, as it is a very important policy tool to attract FDI by creating a stable and predictable business environment. My colleague, Dr. Pan Yuanyuan, will give more details on CII's impacts from economic perspective. So I will not talk about the details. I believe the high level and the reciprocal market access commitments reached between China and the EU in the CII will solidify not only the European companies already in China and the Chinese companies already in the EU, but also those that may be new entrants in both markets as a result of the agreement. Second, the CII releases positive signals of upholding multilateralism and supporting economic globalization. It is worth noting that according to UNCTAD's the World Investment Report 2020, the existing challenges to the system of international production is that arise from the new industrial revolution, growing economical nationalism, and the sustainability imperative. The challenges have pushed the international production system to an inflection point. This has been further exacerbated by the outbreak of the COVID-19 pandemic, and the protectionism pressure on countries has risen significantly. In this context, the CII benchmarks high-level international economic and trade rules, current topics closely related to business operations. The emphasis is on the following factors: creating a fair and competitive business environment under the rule of law for enterprises, supporting economic globalization, highlighting the role of China and Europe as two important forces in the multipolarization process and working together to address global grand challenges. Third, the CI is characterized by a new generation of high-level investment agreements. While promoting bilateral investment cooperation, it also emphasizes that investment needs to be conducive to sustainable development. For example, the agreement provides for commitments to effectively implement the multilateral environmental agreements, including the Paris Agreement, commitments to effectively implement the ratified ILO conventions, commitments to promote the uptake of corporate social responsibility by business, and so on. Section 2 of CII regulates investment of liberalization. It contains obligations on market access, national treatment, and the most favored treatment, as well as a list of prohibited performance requirements. It also contains commitments as regards senior management and board of directors, for example, not to impose nationality requirements. In terms of market access, the CII adopts a pre-establishment national treatment plus negative list model. The CII is the first economic and trade agreement in which China has made commitments in the form of a negative list in all sectors, including services and non-services. It also achieved full alignment with the negative list management system for foreign investment established by the Foreign Investment Law of China, which take effect last year. So what is pre-establishment of national treatment? We can compare the regulations of national treatment in CII and bilateral investment treaties between China and some EU member states. Here is a comparison between CII and the BIT of China and Poland. The regulations of national treatment in CII provides that national treatment includes establishment and operation. However, in China and Poland, BIT, it doesn't mention it. So it only accords national treatment to the investor's operation. What is the negative list? According to the Article 7 of CII, in terms of scheduling liberalization commitments, the agreement follows a negative listing approach in specific annexes for national treatment, most favored nation treatment, senior management, and board of directors, and performance requirements. This means that the parties commit not to discriminate across sectors unless a specific reservation is included to that end in the schedule commitments. Further, the binding of the liberalization commitments is done in a dynamic way, which means that any future relaxation of existing restrictive measures included in the schedules will be automatically bound. As mentioned previously, the specific analyses to the agreement haven't published yet, so the specific commitments are not yet known. However, according to the agreement in principle published by the European Commission, there's some information. China is making important gas plus commitments, and China will also commit to market openings in the area of private healthcare, new energy vehicles, cloud services, as well as computer reservation systems beyond its current level of liberalization. Moreover, by virtue of MFN rules, in WTO, especially gas, the commitments and openings in the services sectors will not only benefit the EU, but also others. And it is worth noting that some sectors are specially excluded from the scope of this section. Here are some examples. For example, government procurement and some subsidies. So what is the next step? According to Article 3, the parties agree to continue on the basis of the progress already made. Their negotiations with a view to negotiate an agreement on investment protection and investment dispute settlement. This agreement shall be approved by the parties in accordance with their own procedures, and the agreement shall be valid indefinitely. I'll stop here, and if you have further questions, you can contact me with my email. Thanks for listening, and my colleague Tan Yuanyuan will give more introduction to the investment impact of CAI from economic perspectives. Welcome, Tan Yuanyuan.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Tan Yuanyuan. I'm from IWEP, Chinese Academy of Social Science. I'm honored to be here to share my opinion of investing in China, especially after the conclusion of CAI negotiations. My presentation includes 3 parts. The first is stylize the fact of FDI inflow to China. The second part is China's regulation of FDI. I will focus on new rules on national security review of foreign investment. The third part is about recommendations for investors. Let's go to the first part. As the data shows, fact 1 is China remains an attractive foreign direct investment destination as the investment climate improves continuously. We have 2 indexes to support this conclusion. The first index is FDI Restriction Index from OECD, which include restrictions in equity, screening and approval process, and the key foreign personnel, and so on. This index decreased from 0.6 in 2003 to 0.2 in 2019. Another index is World Bank's Ease of Doing Business Ranking Index. China's rank increased from number 90 in 2015 to number 30 in 2020. Because of the improvement of investment climate, China's share of FDI in the world has risen steadily. As the chart 1 shows, it's about 19% in 2020. Fact 2 is EU is the leading source of FDI in China. Chart 3 shows FDI inflow to China from 4 source countries. As we can see, EU is an important source of investment compared with other countries. EU investors made great contribution to China in terms of employment, tax, trade volume, and fixed assets accumulation. In fact, EU enterprises are an a building part in Chinese economy. Fact 3 is EU is highly potential in increasing FDI to China. As chart 4 shows, in 2019, the EU's investment in China was about $7 billion, accounting for 5.3% of China's FDI inflow and 1.6% of EU's total outbound investment. There is still a lot of room for improvement. Fact 4 is EU investors enjoying broadening market access in advanced industries through CAI. Past data shows in 2019, the top 5 sectors accounted for about 90% of total FDI from EU. The EU investors have been very consistent in their expectations for CAI over these years, and the CAI is effective in satisfying this demand. The EU official document shows China has made a commitment on market access in multiple sectors, such as telecommunication, cloud service, computer service, automobiles, medical and healthcare. EU enterprises have comparative advantage in these sectors and have proved their competitiveness already. Let's go to the second part. China's regulation of FDI, and we will focus on the new rules on national security review of foreign investment. Maybe every investors have 2 questions in mind. The first is, will China stick to the policy of opening up? The answer is absolutely yes. I'm so sure because of the following reasons. In the past, China's development strategy, there are 2 pillars. One is FDI, another one is processing trade. As any country in their takeoff stage, in 1980s, China was short of foreign exchange. FDI can provide China opportunity to buy equipment and other capital goods, which is necessary for economic growth. Foreign investors earn a higher rate of return in China, especially when compared with the average return rate in other countries. So it's a good deal for both sides. In 2020, China has become the largest FDI destination in the world. China is another big economy after the EU, after the UK and the US to welcome free trade. Foreign investment still plays an extremely important part in China's global securation. In 2019, foreign enterprise accounted for about 80% of processing trade volume. To achieve sustained growth, China reiterated its FDI policy as openness rather than isolation, cooperation rather than confrontation, and win-win rather than exclusion. Open up is the basic economic policy for China. The second question is why China published the FISR at this stage. As Dr. Han mentioned, China's foreign investment law established national treatment and the negative list as the basic rule of the regulation. The new FISR rules is a complement to this regulation regime. And the national security concern is more present than ever before. As we know, China is building the new development pattern with domestic securation being the mainstream and the domestic and global securations reinforcing each other. In the domestic securation, an important part is to expand the domestic demand, reduce external dependence, and guard against external risks. Export-oriented the strategic and the independent industrial system are different choices. An independent industrial system provides security in supply chain, but maybe with high cost and low efficiency. If a country participates in the global value chain and make use of foreign capital, then it may face the over-dependence problem, no matter in technology, capital, especially in times of crisis, such as coronavirus emergency. Let alone there are other risks that are associated with FDI, such as the imbalance of international payment, innovation capacity decline. It's necessary to establish a systematic response through the new FISR rules. Negative list is not enough to prevent different types of risks. I will introduce the key points of the new FISR rules. These rules are after the 2011-2015 FISR rules and promulgated according to the national security law and the foreign investment law. The FISR working mechanism will be established to be responsible for organizing, coordinating, and guiding foreign investment security review work. The office of the working mechanism is established as China's National Development and Reform Commission, NDRC. And both NDRC and the Ministry of Commerce, MOFCOM, will take the lead and undertake the daily work of foreign investment security review. There are three types of transactions subject to review. The first is invest in new project or establish a business. The second is acquire equities through mergers and acquisition. And there are other means are also included. Here are the covered sectors by the FISR rules. As we can see, these sectors not only include traditional sensitive industries, but also include some forward-looking industries. In fact, the FISR mechanism US that CFIUS is adjusting its list of covered sectors from time to time, most importantly, according to the development of technology. So it's kind of international practice. This is the review procedures of the mechanism. We can see there are three stages. Before the formal review, there is an informal stage. These stages last for about 3 months, depend on different case. And two other important part is rules for the implementations of the new FISR for publicly traded companies will be formulated in the future. And under some circumstances, the office will order the parties to unwind the investment by disposing of relevant shares or assets. Maybe I can summarize the features of the new rules. The first is balance between development and the security. As I mentioned, there is opening up at one hand, but there is a guard against the risk at the other hand. The second feature is complete the FDI regulation regime. The regime includes not only the foreign investment law, the national treatment before investment, and the negative list. There are also a FISR, and at the same time, there are some catalogs for encouraged industries. The third feature is the rules is draw lessons from foreign practice and summarize the domestic experience. As we know, the most famous and the typical national security review regime is in U.S. and China draw on the experience of other countries, but after several and at the same time, after several years of domestic experience, the third features is the rules is set up according to the principle of reciprocity. And the last one is we think the new rules can promote investment instead of protectionist measures. It maybe I can explain this. After the setup of the National Security Review System in 2011, the annual rate of FDI in China is about 3%, which is relatively high growth rate for a big economy with an annual inflow of more than 100 billion US dollars. Although the United Nations Conference on Trade and Development will divide the regulation of FDI into liberalization and restriction, these two types. But we don't think our FISR rules is restriction type, because it helps to build a stable business environment. Careful and stable environment is the most important thing for investors. At the same time, the establishment of FISR system will means the regulator will focus on the national security risk. It will be easier to access for large numbers of risk-free and low-risk type of investment. Though, therefore, we expect the quantity and the quality of the FDI to China will continue to improve after the implementation of FISR rules. The last part is recommendations for investors. I think maybe the investor can understanding the FISR from the perspective of China's FDI regulation system as a whole is, and the second recommendation is communication with regulator is very important even before the formal stage. And the third is investors maybe choose to do some research carefully and clarify the relationship between the investment target and the national security and prove it before the regulator and take necessary steps to address regulators' concerns. That's my presentation. Thank you for your time.